Hola.
Hello.
And your microphone's like wide open or something. Did you hit something?
I may have. Does that sound any better?
It's kind of like this background
I wonder if I turn the gain a
change the
little bit.
direction.
How about
Sorry about that.
is that any better or is that further
That's
away?
further. Yeah. Oh, that's better. Right there,
Is
whatever
that
you
much
just
better
did.
where it is?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that
Okay.
had to do with
Sorry.
where I was sitting.
Ah,
That's good.
okay. This
Hello.
weird stuff. Yeah. So hello. Sorry about that. Okay. Let's go back. Oh, who are we and what are we doing here?
Technical stuff. I'm also looking to see if we're running on
Facebook.
Facebook. It's oh, there it is. Okay. Technology is being really weird
Is it going?
and it keeps showing me stuff. Review this now. And I'm like,
I
stop
think it's
it.
telling me from this end that it is going, but I,
It's
like I
hard to
said,
trust
it's
technology
yeah.
lately.
Yeah. So, while you're double checking, welcome to the Eyes of Indigo. I'm Iris, and this is Margot, or maybe this is Margot. I don't know which side because I never can tell. Mine's flipped. And anyway, so
The
yeah,
second one you
technology,
did
gotta love it.
worked.
Oh, okay. Because for me, you're on this side. So
Oh, isn't that funny?
yeah. Which is
For
my better
sure.
side? I don't know.
We don't know.
So we welcome y'all to our show. We're here every Wednesday night at 9:30, and we stream live on Facebook and YouTube, hopefully if the program is cooperating. And we also, you can find previous shows on iTunes and Spotify, and or your favorite podcast aggregator. And I'm going to get my button gear and get more shows up there. I need to, I
Updated for
know.
that. Yeah.
And I did, I've got the list of all our shows with a searchable index, um, that, or actually with keywords. And you go to iriscarter.com and look for the link to Eyes of Indigo directory, and you can see all the shows in their airing order, as well as links to where you can find the shows, and you can do a search for um, the keywords. So you could, like, if you really like the show we did, like with psychic readings, and you want to go back and look at the others, you can find those. If you are watching us, please give us a comment. Let us know you're out there. Let us know if you're new. We tend to recognize a lot of the names of returnees, but if you're posting for the first time, we'd love to know that too. We can see posts from Facebook and from YouTube, but we know that y'all can't see each other's posts. So we share them and we also read them out loud so that one day when I do get the podcast parts up, the audio, that those people will know the kinds of comments that we're getting as well. So have I covered all of that? Here we go. Hey, Donna, it's good to see you. Hope you're doing well.
I think,
Donna
yep,
Grady
I
Moore
found you.
with
I
us.
found us on Facebook. We're going.
Okay, good. Thank you. And let's see. So tonight's show, let me put this up, is Healthcare Hustle.
Woohoo!
Healthcare became an industry with massive profits just a century ago. How did it happen? Who started it? Why does it continue? So we're going down this rabbit hole. We hope that you have your diving gear on because we're going down, 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 down the rabbit hole. Down. I mean, down the rabbit hole.
Tree
So
roots are behind us. We're
yeah,
going
yeah,
so deep. Yeah.
exactly.
Woohoo!
So yeah, and as always, we're discussing weird stuff in a rational way, or at
Yeah.
least we like to think it's rational. So
It's
we
a
we
relative
have
term.
data to back us up, and
Yeah.
so and I guess we've there's been lots of medical issues in my history with my family and different family members, and and in the process, being more skeptical and more feeling like you can question. I recognize doctors aren't gods. In other words, although, like, I had a friend when I worked in the health insurance industry. I had a friend that she used to work at UNC Chapel Hill, and she worked in the office there. And she said, we'd see doctors go by with all their interns, like the little teaching groups going. And she said there was one particular doctor that thought he was God, and he would come and all his people would be like 5 paces behind, just scurrying after, and she said, we always said, here comes the God Squad.
New use for that phrase. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And so, but yet there are so many people out there that,
Still
and
do
I've
defer.
met and dealt with them in the social service industry, where they're going, but the doctor
They're
said, and I'm
said.
like,
My doctor
really?
told me to, so I am.
Yes. And
Well,
it's
my
like,
doctor said I shouldn't. Well, my doctor said I should. Well, I'm going to believe what my doctor said. You hear that a lot.
yeah. And
People
it's,
defer.
and I think, first of all, you got to recognize they go to medical school,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to get approved by the AMA.
Mm-hmm.
But after the research we've done, we're going to find out some more inside facts about that as well.
About both of them.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, you want doctors that are knowledgeable and that they've learned the physiology and all that, and drug reactions, and whatever they're.
Biochemistry, interactions,
Yeah,
and genetics,
I
all
mean,
of
I
it.
admire anybody who's gone through that. I mean, there was a time I wanted to go to medical school, but I had two small children, and I thought I'd do terrible with. I had not done chemistry up to that point, and I was terrible in science. I was more of the, I know I can work with people, and I know that I can tell them things, and I understood anatomy and knew medical terminology and all that stuff. But if you asked me to name that layer of muscle on that particular bone, I'd be going, fuck you, I don't know. You know, why do I care? I'm not doing surgery.
Yeah, and and then so now you're bringing up a really interesting concept that we didn't mention before, and that's called being over educated.
Yeah.
You can learn the linguistics terminology out the wazoo of a profession and sound like you know what you're talking about and have no idea. If you can learn all the terminal, all the muscle names, all the bone names, all the tendon and ligature names, and not know a damn thing about osteopathy.
Yeah.
If you just know the
But
terminology, which is
but
how
yeah.
snake oil people and con men and women and grifters have been doing it for years. They learn the terminology of whatever profession they're imitating, and people believe them because they learn the banter. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. So anyway, so starting off with that, um, okay. So here's the thing: we're gonna back up. We want to look at
A few
what,
things.
yeah,
Yeah.
the history. So back in, well, I pulled up the my wrong notes. So let me look at this. Um,
Turn of the
if you,
century, 1900s.
yes, not, yeah, 20th century ushered in modern medicine. And so do you want to tell us who started modern medicine?
The person considered the founder of modern pharmacology is John Davison Rockefeller Jr., and he was the first U.S. billionaire, not millionaire, billionaire with a letter B.
And then you think about
Right.
billionaire back in
Back in
early,
1900, Yeah, and
Yowzer.
now that would be that'd be a trillionaire nowadays,
Yeah.
pretty much, or a multi-trillionaire. So, one of the wealthiest people out there, and
One of the wealthiest people in the world,
he's one of the
and
most
the wealthiest at the time in the U.S.
the wealthiest, and yes, and probably across history, he's still considered one of the wealthiest people.
Yes.
That's
His family now is still worth $360 billion.
That's gives you an idea. With that much money comes a whole lot of angst for control. Let's just generically put it that way for right now. So, at the time, around 1900, and we'll talk about his history and how John D. Rockefeller got to where he was based on some his family facts. But as there he is as a young man.
Yes, he was a teenager here, about 16 or 18.
Before he got too corrupted. Anyway, but he eventually controlled 90% of the U.S. oil industry. And around the same time that he was coming into his wealth and power in the early 1900s, 1910, scientists, nutritionists also discovered two things. They discovered petrochemicals, and that other chemicals and chemical compounds can be made from petrochemicals. And other scientists discovered what we know as vitamins and bionutritional health.
Not to mention that natural, holistic health had been around for hundreds of years and was still being
Up
used.
to this point, considered thousands of years old. Before that, yeah, natural remedies, diet, organics, herbal remedies, chiropractics, and hot and cold and therapies and so on like that. Those were all standard practice in American medicine up to this point. However, vitamins were discovered to be a part of human nutrition at the same time that petrochemicals was discovered that it can be altered into other chemicals. They started realizing they could make vitamins out of petrochemicals. In 1935 or thereabouts, Rockefeller realized that he could, remember, he was the U.S. oil magnate. He owned all the petro, or 90% of it, that it could be, these products from petro could be patented and sold for a profit. But to do that, he would have to eliminate the competition, which, as Iris just mentioned, was natural medicine, which was actively going on in the U.S. at the time. Natural medicine, such as the herbs, diet, organic, exercise, chiro, and so on, exercise and chiro, yeah, that's the same thing. All right, was taught in half of all medical colleges in the United States at the time. To make his pharmaceutical line made from petrochemicals, number one, to be worth the investment, he would have to wipe out the competition. Needless to say, he was already a cutthroat person. Feel free to look up John D. Rockefeller's personal business practices and professional business practices. That's what he was known for, was being cutthroat. And there's a reason for that. Talk about that more later. So he took 5 steps to implement the pharmaceutical system that we now live under today. First thing he did was he bought half of a major German pharmaceutical company called IG Farben. Letter I, letter G, last name Farben. Iris, do you want to talk about Mendeley and all that stuff now or later?
Go ahead.
It'll circle back around.
Yeah, and there's some other stuff I want to enter on the AMA
before that
too. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So IG Farben has its own dark history. You can look that up and find out more. But there were 5 steps. Step 1 was he bought half of the major German pharmaceutical company. Step 2, he hired Abraham Flexner to submit the Flexner report to U.S. Congress. And in summary, it stated, 1, that there were too many doctors in the United States right now. Number two, that all natural healing was unequivocally quackery and unscientific, despite the fact that it had excellent efficacy for the past several thousand years. It was still declared quackery and not scientific. And the Flexner Report called for the beginning of the American Medical Association, aka the AMA that Iris just mentioned, which now has a monopoly, which is illegal in the United States. But his report called for an AMA, American Medical Association, to be the only source to grant licensure to medical schools. So,
and they also, the Flexner's report, he ended up, he destroyed credibility and funding sources for nearly all schools using non-drug based medicine. 161 medical schools were dwindled down to 81 by 1919, and medical graduates declined from 5,700 to 2,600. So they lost 300 medical students and about half the medical schools in the U.S.
That's in record time. That's fast too.
And from the onset, the AMA has been characterized as a greed-motivated trade union, eliminating competitors to its own financial and political interests. It was funded by the Carnegie Foundation. So Carnegie was in cahoots with...
He comes into the picture on step 4.
Yeah.
All right. So step 2 was getting Abraham Flexner to petition Congress to make natural healing remedies illegal. And it worked. Congress changed all the laws. All natural healing became criminalized and sometimes made into felonies. So Rockefeller teamed up with Andrew Carnegie, who was a steel tycoon, S-T-E-E, metal steel tycoon at the time. He teamed up with Carnegie to fund medical schools with grants and large, wealthy professorships, opened medical schools of their own, and systematically required that they expunge all healing herbs, diet, organic, and non-drug teachings from medical school curriculum altogether. Completely expunge it. So, and Andrew Carnegie was in on that. And you guys have heard that. Andrew Carnegie Fund, brought to you by the Andrew Carnegie Fund Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation. And that was step 4, was to completely wipe out, expunge. Well, 3 was make it illegal. 4 was to expunge it all from all teaching, medical school teachings. They didn't stop there. Number 5 was a smear campaign. He used the media of the time, mostly newspapers. Obviously, when television came out, that came along too. But books and newspapers, he used them to demonize and even arrest and jail any doctors or professors that spoke out against it or continued to use natural remedies at all, and made them criminals. Out of the 500 million doctors that existed before then, 500 million, 2/3 of them disappeared. Stopped practicing, stopped existing, whatever interpretation of that word you want to use. So all students to this day, those were the 5 steps he took. All students to this day are taught allopathic medicine only, to prescribe patented pills and drugs only. Sidebar, Rockefeller tried to do this in China because there's more citizens. It's an even bigger market than in the United States. He tried to do it in China in 1914. However, by 1920, it failed in China, and Eastern medicine continued over there. So he stuck with Western medicine, which is, instead of China, he got Europe, along with Canada and the United States and parts of Central and South America. Today, Big Pharma still makes large donations to medical schools in exchange for teaching students to prescribe their brands of drugs. When these drugs, they're designed to treat symptoms, and most of the time they do not offer cures, which means side effects from petroleum-based drugs, plus not curing illnesses, plus the anxiety and stress of the illness also continues, on and on and on. You end up with people who are highly susceptible to cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Iris, who founded the
Yeah.
American Cancer Society?
Well, that would be our favorite, Mr. Rockefeller.
John D. Rockefeller himself also founded that in 1913.
In order
Dude was
to cover
futurist.
up his crap. It want to say the AMA's board at one point was, well, by 1964, the AMA's Committee on Quackery extended membership to become the Coordinating Conference on Health Information, CCHI. Members included the American Cancer Society, the American Pharmaceutical Association, the Arthritis Foundation, the Council of Better Business Bureaus, the National Health Council, the Food and Drug Administration, the Federal Trade Commission, and the U.S. Postal Service, and the Office of Consumer Affairs, the U.S. and State Attorney General's offices, and the IRS. They allegedly asked the FDA to prosecute drugless quackery targets beginning to intrude on their markets. The FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, was asked to get injunctions against competitive advertisements, and the Postal Service was asked to watch clinics, manufacturers, and doctors using chiropractic, acupuncture, homeopathy, naturopathy, vitamin therapy, alternative cancer, and arthritis treatments, and even books on alternative therapies. By 1984, vitamins, minerals, enzymes, and Liotril had been targeted, along with a plan to exclude chiropractic and other fields from insurance coverage. Products, stores, doctors, and manufacturers became subjects of media discrediting, licensing board harassment, seizures, or raids. The FDA and the Pharmaceutical Advertising Council formed a joint anti-quackery campaign. Key congressional leaders were invited to meetings and asked to join. Initially, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Medicare, Aetna, and the Health Association of America were fed blacklists of doctors and quote-unquote questionable treatments and asked to exclude them. By 86 to 88, a computer database had been created to deny insurance claims by hundreds of insurers. The FDA began attacking food supplements, which were proving to be competitors to drug treatment. Soon, Merck, which was like one of the first drug companies, Sharp, Dome, Roche, Luttrell, GlaxoSmithKline, which is Burroughs Wellcome, had diversified into giant producers of vitamins with massive sales campaigns. Yet these companies were never rated by the
FDA. Of course, they had members on the board of the AMA.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and then, what was the other thing up here? There was a question I saw about, did Rockefeller start the World Health Organization? The International Health Division's ending and the WHO's beginning had been involved in, they had been involved in international health efforts since Rockefeller Foundation's founding in 1913 by John D. Rockefeller. So, yes, he was involved in the WHO.
Those people, yeah, they all ran in the same circles and had the same minions working for them.
Yes.
And then went on down the line. GMOs, things that you guys all know what GMO is, right? Iris, what does that stand for?
Genetically modified organism?
Yes.
Okay.
Generally food that has a lower nutritional value, but higher stays preserved longer on the shelf.
I think Monsanto.
Monsanto is the number one huge purveyor of that, or they're more more insect resistant or whatever out in nature.
Yeah, they do major experiments and all to figure out how to make these like how can we make stuff grow and last longer,
grow faster, look pretty, last longer, but has less nutritional value.
Yeah,
because that tends to be the trade-off. GMOs came to Monsanto directly from the Rockefeller Foundation in around 1954.
Oh,
control.
Isn't that just so altruistic?
The FDA, baby, the Food and Drug Administration. Food and drug. All right.
And if
food
you
is a drug.
look up and see where their funding comes from,
Ta-da!
Ta-da!
Same place.
Yes, because
right.
they're approving pharmaceutical use. Drug companies have to go through the FDA and get FDA approval. A lot of the funding for the FDA comes from pharmaceutical companies, as does the WHO, the World Health Organization, and the CDC. You can look up and see where their funding comes from. And pharmaceutical companies are at the top of all those lists.
Absolutely they are. Absolutely they are. Now, I wanted to touch on, why was Rockefeller such an asshole? Why was he such an asshole? Why did he do this besides being disgustingly rich? I know you have too, have met people who are filthy rich. They are not all, oligarchs like this and plutarchs. Yeah. They're not all demonic
They're the
like
devil.
that.
They're the devil, I say.
Some rich people are, but then there are poor people, middle class people who are also demonic as hell. So there you go. There's Rockefeller in his waning years, and you can see the demonic influence there. However,
It just creeps me out.
yeah. Now, not everybody is into putting it all on a spiritual interpretation. And someday you guys will learn better. But learn more, I should say, learn better and more about what is spirituality. However, so to keep this in a mainstream conversation, there's still psychosocial reasons for why Rockefeller ended up being the big ass shit turd that he was. Okay, for starters, he was raised in a low income family. It was just him and his mother. His father abandoned him and his mother when he was very young. His father abandoned other women with other of his children. This was a habit. This this man's name, John D. Rockefeller's father's name was William Avery Rockefeller, and his nickname was Devil Bill. All right.
Yeah, can't make that shit up.
So, Devil Bill was very public with his occupations. He was a moving around guy, moved around in the West, Midwest, up and down the East Coast a lot. Devil Bill was born in 1810. He died in the right around 1900. I think it was like 1890s. He was a snake oil salesman of his time in the 1800s. He sold fake remedies to people on the streets in the 1800s. He was also a loan shark to farmers. This is the 1800s. He would loan money to them at the interest rate of 12%. Today, 3, 5, 7% is normal. 12 is getting out there. This is the 1800s. 12% was astronomical. He was a loan shark to farmers in trouble. He would target poor farmers so that they would default, and he would get the ownership of their land. And that's how he became a land baron, by swindling these people out of their farming property. He was also a horse trader. If you buy and sell horses nowadays, that doesn't mean you're a bad person, but back then that was a nefarious occupation. And he was a serial baby daddy that left.
He was very not prolific. What's the word I'm looking for?
He was a whore dog.
Yeah.
But as he was wealthy too, not as wealthy as his son, but Devil Bill was wealthy too because of all of his
nefarious
dealings. Yes, because he left all of these women destitute. So John D. Rockefeller made most of his money through, as I said earlier, his cutthroat style of wheelings and dealings, which his father also did. So if you want to look at in a mainstream, psychosocial model where he came from, dude was constantly in a state of survival. and he came up out of cutthroat and learned how to be cutthroat. So, but honestly, I'm with Iris, and that I just think he's demonic as hell. I think he's got evil influences that go way beyond just being a mean little nasty old man.
Yeah.
He hung out with other people who are notoriously known for being cabal, for being deep state, for being world powers, and like the Rothschilds, the Carnegies, and so on. However, there were rich people.
All the people who make up the Federal
Reserve.
Federal Reserve, which is not a government agency, people.
It's privately owned. Look it up. Interestingly, the families that were rich at the time that said, no, we don't want to do a Federal Reserve, that's unethical, it's immoral, they apparently weren't part of the demonic families, such as the Astors. They ended up on the Titanic. Boom. By the way, there's controversy about whether or not it was the Titanic that actually went down, but that's a whole nother controversy. I think it's coming out in a movie soon. There's a documentary coming out about that. Yeah, there's a documentary about there was a switch. But anyway, I know that sounds weird, but it's in there. But that was a hit, guys. That was an assassination of all the rich families that were on that trip, that were on that boat. That was intentional. That was no iceberg. So, all opposition that had any power, any opposition to the Federal Reserve, was killed. And their spouses and children were taken with them in one move. Yeah. If you're rich and powerful, do not fly on the same plane, train, or bus as your spouse or your children. just
your
saying.
Other cohorts. I mean,
yeah, that's true. Or your business partners. Yeah.
Mass murder, yeah. You never know where your opposition is going to strike.
Show up.
Should I show the video real quick? Would that
yes, Phil, there is a wonderful summary of all the main points we just made in a really nice video that Iris found for us.
Yay! So let's see. Let me take it back here.
It's short.
At the same time that John D. Rockefeller seized U.S. media, he also hijacked U.S. medicine. When it was discovered that drugs could be produced from petroleum, America's top oil mogul ordered his army of propagandists to invert reality accordingly. Medicines used for thousands of years were suddenly classified as alternative, while the new, petroleum-based, highly addictive, and patentable drugs were declared the gold standard. After buying a German pharmaceutical company that manufactured chemicals of war for Adolf Hitler, Rockefeller leveraged his political influence by pressing Congress to declare natural healing modalities unscientific quackery. Rockefeller then took control of the American Medical Association and began offering massive grants to top medical schools under the mandate that only his approved curriculum be taught. Any mention of the healing powers of herbs, plants, and diet was erased from most medical textbooks. Doctors and professors who objected to Rockefeller's plan were crucified by the media, removed from the AMA, and stripped of their license to teach and practice medicine. Those who dared to speak out were arrested and jailed. When evidence began to emerge that petroleum-based medicines were causing cancer, Mr. Rockefeller founded the American Cancer Society, through which he suppressed that information. John D. Rockefeller is duly credited as the founder of the pharmaceutical industry, and the reason that medical error is currently the third leading cause of death in America. This is not an indictment against doctors. More than anyone, they are under the stranglehold of the single largest lobbying power in Washington. Every year, the pharmaceutical industry spends at least twice the amount as big oil to influence laws, policies, and public perception. Thanks to Mr. Rockefeller, the architect of American monopolies, no industry has more power over our lives than Big Pharma.
Excellent summary, and it throws in a little bit of extra information as well.
Yeah, and that also brings up the pharmaceutical deaths. Where, let me find my facts again.
Yep.
Okay. According well, they started back in the Journal of the American Medical Association. Imagine that. Did a study in '94 that adverse drug reactions, ADRs, accounted for over 2 million serious events and 100,000 hospital deaths. According to a 2003 comprehensive study of medical peer-reviewed journals in government health statistics, there were an additional 199,000 fatal ADR outpatient deaths in the U.S. annually. According to the study, there are approximately 783,900, so almost 784,000 iatrogenic, which would be medically induced deaths every year in the U.S. Furthermore, only between 5 to 20% of those acts are ever reported.
Yeah.
So you're looking at nearly 1 million deaths every year in the U.S. because of
medical incompetence.
Yeah. And that's only probably 20% of them or less.
Yeah. They may even report between 5 and 20% because that's felony incompetent people self-reporting that they've committed a crime. So that means most of them are not going to be reported.
Right.
So it's possible that million a year is only 5% up to 20%, up to 20 million. So, or would that, yeah, up to 200 million or 20 million, somewhere in there. I'm not a math person, but at least 20 million people a year not even being reported. But it is being noted as the third highest cause of death. I think heart issues and cancer are the other two.
And
we just commented on those.
Yeah.
Medications galore out of that. So, again, not disparaging doctors. There are some mainstream medications that work fine, but to exclude certain other medications is the same as censorship. When you exclude information, only present partial information, you're committing a crime against humanity.
And I should have brought in, I've got a book. If you look up Amy Greer, Greer.
Yeah.
She's written a couple of books, and I've got one of them. She lives in High Point.
Yep, I know who she is. Yeah.
And she is was a pharmacist. Okay.
Turned naturopathic.
Yeah. And what she discovered, I met her like 12 years ago or so, maybe even closer to 15 years ago. And she was getting ready to embark on going to
South America? Central America?
Rainforests.
Yeah.
Because what she discovered was that pharmaceutical companies would go to the rainforest where these medicine men had natural methods of healing, and they would find out, okay, well, you're healing this, how are you doing it? And they would get their recipes, take them, and bring them back to the laboratory where they would synthesize them to create new medicines. In the meantime, because they had infiltrated these tribes, they would take T-shirts and hats and little whatnots to...
You mean like glass beads to the Manhattan Indians to buy property?
Hello, thank you, yes. And so then the children would get all excited. No, I don't want to learn that medicine crap. I want to go to the Western society and explore that stuff. So the medicine men were literally dying out. And Amy wanted to go and record them before they were obsolete. And she has made multiple trips to the Congo, to South America, to different rainforests, and quite adventuresome, and also running into issues when she would tried to do this with government agencies and things like that.
Yeah.
But, here she saw the problem and is trying to record history, basically, whereas the pharmaceutical companies have no regard for the origins of the cures and recipes and things they get, which is insane. And it also brings me back to that movie Medicine Man with Sean Connery years ago.
Yes.
It's almost,
That's a reveal, honey.
it's a reveal.
It's a reveal. It's a reveal of what else is going on.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you found a little bit more.
Yeah. I
about.
Well, I wanted to share this, right?
Yes.
Okay. This is a meme I made a couple years ago. I was in the doctor's office and I didn't take a picture of the doctor's office refrigerator. I didn't want to sit there because I was getting my blood taken, and I want to go say, "Hey, can I take a picture of that?" But I knew something was up when I read the signs. It looked just like this. Okay. And
so you recreated the image.
Okay. So I recreated the image that I couldn't really take a picture of. And the two biggest signs were identifying private pay insurance vaccines by state vaccines, 0 to 18 only. And so I did some research on it. And the government paid medicines, whether they're getting it through Medicaid or
no insurance
or whatever, they get them at low cost, and typically generics are mandated and
for government medication,
for government agencies. So they're going to have the generics and the low cost drugs
on the left.
On the private vaccines, the insurance companies cover them, and the drug costs are higher. Insurance companies are for profit, pharmaceutical companies are for profit, and medical equipment suppliers are for profit. And then they're basically distributing drugs based on patients' financial status. And it is actually an issue of healthcare discrimination.
It's discrimination, based on income.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And there's been studies where typically Black people, African Americans, get lower quality care because of their status, and education levels, because a lot don't know to ask questions, and they just, they
have to defer.
Yeah. And so when
that happens across all races, though, because we're all conditioned to not challenge authority, avoid challenging authority, and that means.
And that's what I do best.
So do you mind? Are we at where we could wrap up with the positive side of this and the benefit of this conversation? Are we there, or did you have something else to share?
There was one other thing that popped into mind. I guess also recognizing that, I've done research, and like when I went and got a colonoscopy, and at the time I asked the doctor if I could not get Versed.
You did not want him to give you Versed during your procedure.
My procedure, and he's going, "Why wouldn't you want that?" And I was like nervous, and I thought, I couldn't really explain it at the time. I wasn't prepared to get. Well, yeah, I wasn't prepared to get the flack. And I just said, "Never mind, I'll be okay." And I did a quick meditation on myself to make sure that I was invulnerable to whatever
the side effects. Yeah.
Yes. But I wrote him a letter afterwards and said, "This is when I had my colonoscopy and appreciate the care I got, but here's why. And I want you to consider." And I gave him links to the research, an article, all this stuff. But I wanted to just point out a little bit of research showed me Versed is an amnesiac. It causes amnesia, making the patient forget the actual procedure. However, when the conscious mind is removed, the subconscious takes over and often misinterprets the activity surrounding the body. In addition, without a conscious mind, an individual is void of recognizing and processing what is happening in a logical manner. So, as a result, the subconscious memory that's left behind may actually turn into or cause post traumatic stress. PTSD is only one of numerous potentially bad outcomes in using Versed or other benzodiazepines.
Benzodiazepines.
Yes. And even physicians have commented on like the articles that I sent him and that sort of stuff. And I told the doctor, I said, with pharmaceutical companies cashing in on the medical field, many doctors are given skewed lab results related to drugs and are not familiar with the societal revelations. The comments and questions at the end of these articles reveal case after case. In Psychology Today, there was an article, magazine, provided information on how unconscious fear-related memories affect day-to-day life, correlating with the PTSD-inducing reactions to Versed. So that was just a little bit of research that I did on my own. And quite frequently, I will do research. And I learned a lot of this from working at the insurance company, like examining your bills and making sure that you're not charged for something that you didn't get. A lot of people just go, oh, well, the insurance paid and I'll just pay my part and it'll be fine. Sometimes the insurance catches that stuff, but sometimes they don't. And if you can save the insurance company money by recognizing what you did and did not receive in your services, whether you were in the hospital or other,
any treatment,
then that's going to help bring insurance costs down, because insurance companies are getting it stabbed up the wazoo too. When I worked for
that's the theory,
the insurance company, this was years ago, we actually allowed up to a 400% markup on prescription drugs, which was phenomenal to me, to think that retail can be up to 400%. I don't know what it is now. And recently I went round and round, and I'll try to just put this in a couple of minutes, but I had an echocardiogram, and I was sent from my general practitioner. They have multiple offices, and they said, we're going to send you to one of our sister offices to get it done, because they now have the equipment to get it done. And I thought, well, great, because it's covered under insurance. It'll be fine. So I went in, registered at the desk, had the procedure, left. Later, I got a bill and the explanation of benefits. They matched. The insurance company paid their part. I was very happy. And I thought, I bet I'm going to get a radiology bill. And a lot of people don't realize that when you have an x-ray or any type of sonogram, any type of that ultrasound, that a radiologist has to read the test and write their report. Yeah, and it's a second bill. Well, there's plenty of, I've gotten radiology bills from Greensboro people before, and they're usually covered by local insurance, not an issue. Well, I get a bill for $200 from a radiologist out of Charlotte. And I thought, what the hell? And I thought, well, maybe it's just the billing company. I didn't really think much about it. Waited on the explanation of benefits from the insurance company, and they denied it. And their suggestion was, this provider is not covered under this group. And maybe if it was coded, because sometimes like you'll have one random doctor and he might work for multiple offices, and maybe the office that he was billed under wasn't covered, but maybe if he was billed under another office, that might have been
if they
covered.
change the code, it might be coverable.
Might be covered. I called, and the woman basically told me it was my fault and that the coding was perfect. I talked to
an ego statement.
her. I talked to the insurance company, And I talked to my doctor's office billing office. All of them, and while I was trying to get basic information, I drilled them down for more information. All of them unequivocally agreed that the way it's set up now, and I used this example with them, what they're saying is you need to question everybody to see if they're under your insurance. Yes, the doctor's office is supposed to kind of pre-screen most of that stuff and make sure that you go to services that are covered, which is what my doctor did in good faith. But I didn't know to ask which radiologist they were sending it to. And I gave this example and they all agreed. I said, so what you're saying is, let's suppose my doctor sends me to Duke University. And I think just about every insurance company is going to cover Duke University. Yes, correct. So you go to Duke, and if I walk in and they say, well, we want to do some blood work, I should ask the person taking my blood, wait, before you take my blood, are you covered by my insurance? Do you work for Duke? Who writes your paycheck? And once they take the blood, where are you sending it to? Are you sending it to the lab that's covered by my insurance? And then you get wheeled down the hall to radiology, and the person's getting ready to do the screen. Is this radiology department part of Duke, or is it a separate office? Are you getting paid by Duke, or are you getting paid by
subcontractor
else?
Or contractor? Right.
Right. And who is reading those records? Is it a doctor here? Can you make sure it's a radiologist that's under my insurance company? And they said, yes. Absolutely. It is up to the patient to ask every step of the way. And all that has happened is in this monopoly, in this medical industry. It is an industry. It is not a profession.
No. Everybody's
getting a slice of the pie. You know, and even my sister, she was going to a doctor that the facility was owned by the hospital. So she was getting double billed, a facility fee plus the doctor's bill. And eventually I think that got outlawed, I'm not positive.
Depends on what state you're in. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, that was crazy that's even an issue. And that people don't know.
People don't know to ask those questions.
Oh, yeah. And another person I called.
They do now if they listen to this show.
There is a new agency that was just created in the last couple of years based on accepting calls regarding the No Surprises Law. And it is a law that people are not supposed to be surprised with bills that aren't covered, right?
Right.
I thought my case might fit under that. It did not.
So it's a very limited spectrum.
I should have asked.
Well, yeah, like I said, very limited spectrum. They're just CYA covering your ass. That's all that law does.
And she told me if I have issues with it, I need to call like the Attorney General and some local state people. But I told her, I said, what are these older people? You know, I said, Joe Farmer, who has no education and is going in to get an infected cut taken care of on his leg, is not going to know diddly squat about insurance and pharmacy charges and
reader charges and everything else, and interpretation charges. They're not going to know.
And in the doctor's office, and that woman totally agreed. She said, yes, we get lots of those types of calls. And the guy in my doctor's office said, it happens every day. Every day we have people calling and going, why am I being charged this? And I wasn't expecting it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The only thing that helped me was because my costs turned into a self-pay, they gave me a huge discount. My bill went from $200 to $60, which then that tells you too the markup for insurance.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a 4 times markup right there.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, it's all about asking questions and jumping up and down. And, and there was a time where I didn't have insurance, and I'd go to my doctor's office and they'd say, well, if you'll pay the whole amount, we'll give you,
A
and
discount.
it was like a huge discount. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. It was cheaper than paying insurance at that time. And so I did that. I got through a year or two without insurance just by, and got through my general health checks
By paying cash.
by
Yeah.
paying cash. But people, ask questions, and what are the sources, and ask questions of us too. Okay. All right. So yeah.
Well, we're kind of
But
coming towards the end at the moment, but yeah,
yeah, and to
we
kind of,
condone challenging authority in terms of asking questions of the authorities who have power over your existence, such as your health, your food, your education, your safety, your environment, and your body, your psychology, your relationships. Anybody that has authority over that stuff, it's okay to question why are they dictating specifically that or not. Yeah, ask about what's not being said as well. Pay attention.
and I know, like, even in the questions that I had, like, oh, will this be covered by my insurance? I told the people that I talked to, I said, if I go to the doctor's office and I talk to the person at the desk, they're not going to know diddly squat, because that's not their job. So who do you ask for this stuff? And you really have to drill down and make a point at it. And I guess the reason I say that is, you don't want to get into an argument with the receptionist, because she
She doesn't know.
know.
Yeah.
And a lot of doctors don't realize until you start asking questions. Why, okay, you're wanting to give me this procedure. What are the alternatives? What are the economical ways of dealing with this? What's it going to do to me? What are the risks involved? Knowing that you can ask those questions. And if you ask them in a receptive manner, oh, come on, doc, do I really have to have that?
Ask
Okay.
politely.
Ask politely.
I have some questions. May I ask you now?
Yeah.
I have some important questions. Shall we discuss them now? Because you don't want their permission to ask questions. That's not really what you want to do either.
That's true. Yeah.
You want to go, you just polite. I have some important questions. Shall we discuss them now, please?
Yes.
You can
don't be afraid.
Don't soft pedal after that. Yeah. Take the emotion out of the question. Just flat out ask the question. And if you don't understand the answer, ask them to explain. Ask them what words mean. Ask them what terminology means. Ask them what letter abbreviations mean. Like da 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 da. So the AMA requires us to say, okay, what is the AMA? And when they say names of drugs, what are the side effects of those drugs? What are the side effects of that therapeutic treatment? Once they name it, if they don't describe it, so on and so on. How long? How long until it should end? What's the projection? Who else needs to be involved? Are those people, those offices, are they covered under my insurance? Ask up front and include the insurance questions.
Yeah.
Is this covered on my insurance? Period.
And so many people go into the medical profession for altruistic reasons. They want to help people. What happens is a lot of them get burned once they're in there. I mean, doctors are inundated with all kinds of fees and insurance and stuff like that. And so sometimes they specialize because they need to make enough money to cover their costs. That's why it's harder to get general physicians. And they're thinking, okay, well, we can get more money by doing this. Then you have other doctors that are purely in it for the money, or purely in it because daddy and granddaddy were, and 3 uncles and all that stuff.
Social expectation, right?
Yeah. And so, be discerning with who is taking care of your body, and know that every bit of treatment that you have is a choice. And so you have every right to ask questions.
You always
And
do
yeah,
in every situation. Yeah.
exactly. So, all
That
right,
was
let me,
yeah, what you just said. That was the point of the show. Is there are reasons, the history, the debacles that we're coming out of 100 years ago are motive enough to always ask questions. Okay.
yes, and not
So,
just in medicine.
true.
This applies to other situations. So
So
coming up,
next week, next month.
yes, next week we're gonna go a little bit more into this subject in a different way. And what's the stink about pink? October is the month of pink, and we're looking at it.
Closely.
And yes, and then October 12th we're doing psychic readings. You and then October 19th, special guest Dale Stacy is going to join us. I just went to a fabulous book signing event that he had this weekend. It was so much fun.
Yes. He has a
And
new book
then
out. We're going to
yes,
feature that.
and then October 26th we'll be hitting the fourth of our series on the chakras, looking at green.
Heart chakra, very, very important chakra.
Yes.
Super, super powerful. That ought to be fun too. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, people, we appreciate you sticking with us, and hopefully, this has been informative and a little bit entertaining for you. Uh,
Please do the
and
research.
yes, do the research for
Don't take our
yourself.
word for it. Yep. Always do the research
And
for yourself.
if you want links, I'll try to remember and go back and put links under the podcast just so
Yeah,
people
you can
look
email
for it.
Iris and she'll send them when she's got a minute. Iris@iriscarter.com.
Awesome. All
Yeah.
right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for joining The Eyes of Indigo with Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears. Music is Arcadia by Kevin MacLeod of Incomptech.com, licensed under Creative Commons. Visit our Facebook page for broadcast details at www.facebook.com/Eyes of Indigo. Show is copyrighted 2022 by Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears.